We hear a, we hear a lot in spirituality and self-development that we need to become our higher self, yet hardly anyone tells us how to do so. But what if I told you there's a simple psychology behind it, and within 4 simple steps you could become the person only your wildest dreams can imagine? Well, enough of the fancy hook to get your appetite going, let's cover those 4 simple steps. 1. Clearly identify your future self and how to become them. Firstly, without a clear idea of who your future self actually is, you stand no chance at becoming them. So take some time to consider all of the big, crazy and ambitious things your future self has already accomplished. Take some time to write it down. Consider, what do they look like? What's their social life like? What's their job? How much money do they earn? What do they value? All of this introspection work will give us solid information on the type of person we want to become, and it will dictate everything that comes next. A quick note on goals and depression. Research shows depressed people are much more likely to set vague goals, meaning they are much less likely to achieve them, all the more fueling their negative cycle of depression. So make sure you are as specific as possible when you are imagining who your future self is. Here are 2 principles to help you do so. Number 1, identify your 5-year priorities. Pick 3 priorities you will prioritize over the next 5 years of your life above everything else. Why 3? Because in the words of Jim Collins, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. Perhaps you want to prioritise being in the best shape of your life every day, building your social capital into a tight-knit community, and consistently earning £10,000 per month. Principle 2. Identify your 12-month goals. Then break those priorities up into 12-month priorities, 1-month priorities, 1-week priorities, and 1-day priorities. For example, in 12 months' time, you want to have built a solid community of friends. So your 1-month goal becomes, get 4 new numbers of people you've met. 1-week goal becomes, go to 2 new cafes to work. Your 1-day goal becomes, book a salsa class near me. But zooming back into the daily, here's tip number 2 you can use to become your future self. Prioritise your future self daily. Do so by removing all non-crucial activities and instant gratification. If something pulls you into a lower consciousness state, such as excessive scrolling, mindlessly checking Instagram, watching movies instead of heading out to socialise, remove it. You can do so by winning your impulses. When you notice the urge to engage in lower activities, surf it for 10 minutes. When you feel the urge to give up on something too soon, push yourself 40% harder. Create positive associations. Eat an apple before studying. Smile before you enter social events. Listen to calming music while working. Lastly, don't underestimate the power of developing good sleep rituals in order to become your future self. Because we all know we're not the best versions of ourselves when we're tired. So, get early morning sunlight as soon as you wake up for 3 to 10 minutes to kickstart your circadian rhythm, and cultivate an evening wind-down routine. Perhaps turn off all screens an hour before bed and read, because the strength you feel tomorrow is the calm you give your evenings. Here are 3 principles you can use to help you align your daily actions with your future self. 1. Disregard non-crucial activities. When you're unsure about whether you should do something, such as giving in to a temptation or continuing in the face of discomfort, think of yourself at 100 years old. Ask, will this activity matter then? If your 100-year-old self wouldn't want you to do it, don't do it. Of course, we covered this in the last video about discipline, but just to restate the point again, when you develop a relationship with your 100-year-old self, you develop empathy in your imagination, whereby you understand how you act in now will either positively or negatively affect your 100-year-old self. Act as if they're always watching. Principle number 2, schedule 12-month goals before any other task. Around 4 hours a day, dedicated to working on your goals, is enough time for you to see incredible progress. Do so by ensuring that the tasks that are aligned with your goals and becoming your future self are prioritized above all else. For example, maybe you push working on your passion project earlier in the morning before you go to your day job. Principle 3, replace instant gratification with beneficial habits. If you incorporate working towards your goals in all of your behaviors, your progress will skyrocket. For example, if you want to become fluent in Italian within 12 months, but between 6 and 8 PM you fall into a pit of doom scrolling, change the content you watch to only Italian content. To gain clarity over your current instant gratification vices, because we all have them, write up a list of them on the left, and then on the right, write up a list of beneficial habits you could replace them for. Mindlessly scrolling between 6 and 8 PM becomes only watch content in Italian. Listening to too much music while working out becomes listen to a podcast instead. Snacking on chocolate throughout the day becomes every Sunday make dark chocolate protein bars, enough for each day of the week. But striving to be our future self alone can be a lonely road. Hence, tip number 3 is seek out beneficial environments. We are products of our environments. I'm sure you've heard that before. And you've probably also heard the 5 chimp theory. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if we want to stand the best chance of becoming our future selves, we must socialise with people who are better than us. Side note, the same wisdom applies of the 5 chimp theory to the content you consume, because the modern equivalent nowadays is you are the average of the 5 influencers and podcasts you consume most. To help you do so, here are a few principles. Principle number 1, step outside your comfort zone. To find the others who will steer us on course of becoming our future self, we must enact the courage to find them. We can do so, i.e. stepping outside of our comfort zone, by doing things our future self might be able to do that our present self might not be able to do. Perhaps your future self is a charismatic person with a strong network of friends, but at the moment you currently feel socially understimulated and a bit socially anxious. In which case, consider what habits aided your future self in becoming a charismatic socialite. What events might they have attended? How do they hold themselves in conversation? Stepping outside of our comfort zones, I know you've heard that so many times before in the self-development space, but what it involves is failing upwards, because we're going to get some things wrong. No doubt about it. But so long as we're in our stretch zone, that is all the information we'll need to know that we're on the right path. A useful tool I use to give myself a little push to get outside of my comfort zone is I ask, what is one thing I can do today that will make me hesitate? Do that every day for 30 days and you'll be almost unrecognisable. Principle number 2, surround yourself with people who are better than you. As the saying goes, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So when looking for the others, socialise with people who emulate qualities of your future self. As he highlights in his book, The Compound Effect, Dan Hardy says there are 3 types of people. Dissociations, so people who exhibit the behaviours you're trying to avoid, cut ties with them. Limited associations, people who possess some negative traits but won't immediately impact your behaviour, limit your contact with them. And expanded associations, people whom you aspire to emulate, go out of your way to spend more time with them. Lastly, tip number 4, have an empowering view of life and fate. Most people fail to become their future selves because they have a disempowering view of life and fate based on 3 things: their past, their current circumstances, and an inability to control their fate. So to combat these, and before we finish, here are 3 principles. Principle number 1, don't let your past dictate your future. Regardless of what happens in your life, you always have the choice to decide what you do next. You can further fuel this process by adopting a mindset of empowerment over your past, whereby you simply reflect on the lessons you've learned from your experiences rather than viewing yourself as limited by them. For example, perhaps that relationship you thought was destined for eternity didn't work out. But instead of placing the limitation of yourself of now believing love is for losers, perhaps you reflect and realise for your next relationship, you want to be more present, communicate clear boundaries on how much time you expect to spend together, and place a higher importance on open and honest communication. Our past, if not framed for growth, will stand as a direct impediment to our progress rather than serving as useful instruction of what to do or not to do. Principle number 2, take ownership of your circumstances and your ability to change. Do so by applying the Stoic principle of turning shit into sugar. Search any setback for a way it can become an advantage. Being stuck in traffic becomes an opportunity to think through your 5-year plan. Being shouted at by a stranger becomes an opportunity to practice patience and conflict management. Being rejected by an attractive stranger becomes an opportunity to practice anti-fragility. As said by Marcus Aurelius, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Lastly, principle number 3, believe you're the creator of your own fate. There's a brilliant quote I came across a year ago, but I have no idea who said it. You have a lot less time than you think, but you have a lot more control over how you spend your time than you think. Depression and sadness largely arise due to a lack of opportunities and a feeling of control over our life. If you feel that no matter what you do, some external force is vying for your demise, life will be a constant slog you feel you need to drag yourself through. However, if you believe that how you act now is your choice, under your control, and will send ripples throughout eternity, suddenly the game shifts in your favour, and each moment becomes optimal. After all, life isn't happening to you, it's responding to you. Organisational psychologist who wrote the book Become Your Future Self Now, Benjamin Hardy, suggests we can believe that we are children of a divine force, or a higher power, as if we're being guided by that higher power towards our self-actualisation. Finally, to become your future self, you must believe that it's possible, that it's your fate. destiny, and what you're deserving of. But note, becoming your future self is a infinite game. You will likely not arrive at a point where you realise, I've done it, and then you spend the rest of your time relaxing your years away. Your future self is in the distance, always just out of reach. But that's the point. The pursuit is the point. As the author of the groundbreaking book Mindset, Carol Dweck, says, becoming is better than being. And the paradoxical thing is, so long as we realise that how we act now will dictate who our future self is, we're technically always our future self. Contradictions are sometimes the best wisdom. Enough of my rambling pretensions. Stay disciplined, playful, dangerous. Muchachos, nos vemos.